today I have the pleasure of chatting with Father Tadros Sharobeam, the first priest ordained from the Australian Copts living in Melbourne. Thank you, Abuna, for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, Abuna.
In 1990, I remember it was when the first time we told His Holiness in Egypt. He was so excited about it. So excited. He visited us in 1989, Bob Shmuda. And at that time, the application is going on through. But I remember in a visit in Egypt in 1990, I said to him, Your Holiness, we had the approval. He was so excited. You give us a blessing to start. And I remember at that time he said, a school is more important than a church. A school is the future. He encouraged us so much. I remember that, and in 1991, in his visit, he visited Melbourne 1999, I think in February. At that time, we had the place, and we bought some second-hand furniture, chairs, big, small, tables, everything, all sizes. And we had 3 classrooms to start with. The day His Holiness arrived to Melbourne, we had exactly 50 people in the enrollment list. And that was the condition.
And I think Pope
think
Shenouda also made a donation.
That came later on. Actually, this is one of the early pictures.
With the very first school principal.
With the first school principal. That's Beryl Kennedy. And that's, I think, a school picture also with His Holiness. But this one is later on in Clifton Hill. And that was the first. Actually, this is the one. This was 1993, with His Holiness visiting us. September 1993, when he visited us in the old building in Clifton Hill. And at that time, the school became too small for us, and we need a bigger school. And we asked His Holiness, we have to search for a bigger school. The number reached close to 200 students, and the place cannot take it. And it's not safe as well with all these concrete floors. He encouraged us, and he asked us to go and find a place. And I remember at that time, at that time also, in a visit to the monastery, he advertised to all the people his blessings for a new school, and that we are looking for a new building. At that time, with the Coolaroo area started to come up. And His Holiness told everyone, I'm going to donate some money for the school.
Yes, I remember that vividly.
And later on, a year after, I visited Egypt and visited him in his office, and he gave me the check, $50,000. Imagine $50,000 in 1993, 1994. It's big money. It was huge money.
Still big money today.
And he also donated some money for the monastery. For I remember at that time he visited the monastery, and he said to me, I remember when he saw the new drawing for a church, he didn't like it. I said, that's too small. I said, Your Holiness, we don't have enough money to do that. That's good enough for us. He said, no. You are not thinking of the future. And he took his stick, and he went onto the ground. At that time, the engineer has already digged a foundation for the church. And he says, no good. He kept walking and walking and walking after the end of this digging. And he put his stick in there and he said, here! That's where this church should finish. I said, all right, Holy Holiness, whatever you say. And I remember when he said to have some tea or coffee at that time, he said, why you are worried? Is it money? I said, Sayyidina, we hardly can afford anything. He said, don't worry. How much you need to extend this one? And I asked the engineer, how much we need? He said, 15,000. His Holiness took his book, check for 15,000. Here you are. Do it.
It's beautiful. So from
it's amazing,
nothing,
the stories which comes out of the blue. And you can feel this good heart of His Holiness at that time. I remember his first visit in the school. He was like a child. He was so happy. He was going to the classrooms, and the kids cling to his ropes and catch his stuff. And they ask him, what do you do with this stuff? Why are you wearing these robes? And he laughs from all his heart.
Always very
From his heart. And where do you live, Your Holiness? Do you have a house? Kids were so young, like John and Angelo, those little kids. He used to ask him questions, and he used to answer it. He even forgot himself. People was waiting from outside until, Sayyidina, there's people waiting for you for the opening of the school. Oh, yes, okay. And he went. And the opening was February 1991.
And since then, so many generations have graduated and have become pioneers in their own field.
It's 28 years now.
Yes.
28 years.
So many people graduated. Now, Abuna, what's your vision now for the future? What are your hopes for the next 50 years? We've started from nothing. We've started with one church, and now we have several dioceses, we have school, we have monasteries, we have a hostel. How do you see the service shaping up in the future? What do you think are the biggest needs that are not being addressed at the moment?
I think what I can see very clearly is that we are extending. And now, perhaps, in the 70s and 80s, we were mainly catering for new arrivals, for people just coming from Egypt. Many of them were still speaking Arabic. They need a place to come in together, a place to stay, to be able to listen to each other, to help each other, to find jobs, to find accommodation, all these sort of things. But now we are talking almost about the third generation. Now, the people who came in the 60s, that's grandchildren now. Maybe after their grandchildren. Even I was ordained a priest in 1979. I remember I baptized people in 1979, which now I am baptizing their children, or even doing the wedding of their children. And so I saw myself on the third generation, and that was only from 1979. So it's different type of community now. We are extending. And I could say the vision of somebody like His Grace Bishop Sorian and the other people who have helped it and worked it, and they're looking for the future. And that's where we had now a very vibrant theological college. We have a lot of active services in the church, which are looking for the future of the church. And you can see, I think in 50 years, we might have completely different shape of the church. Our churches will be bigger. We will have more services in the churches. We will definitely have churches which serve only English speaking. Now even at St. Mary here, one of the main masses we have on Sunday is the English mass. And we stopped doing it in the smaller church. We do it in the bigger church. There's no point. There's no point. That was the idea of Abbas Rial, actually. He encouraged us and said, look for the future. You cannot just send your young kids to the small church. Put them in the bigger church. Let them love the church. Amazing. If you attended the church today, I was praying the English Mass. I couldn't believe what I am hearing, what I am seeing. The church was full of young people. And the hymns they are singing, they're taking care of everything. And now they're a church, not ours. We look now around them, and we look at them happy, with our hearts full of pride with them. How those kids now are growing up. That's my dream of a church which keep growing. Young people who own the service, who feel this is their place, not my dad and my grandfather's place. Thanks to that, thanks to my grandfather, they put the foundation stones, but we now to build. I remember very well what Abuna Tadros used to tell us. He used to say, your generation, that's the generation of the 60s and 70s, are laying up the land. So you are expanding horizontally. The generation coming after you in the 90s and later on will expand
upward,
vertically. And he encouraged us to buy more land, more places. He said, the time comes when you run out of land. So buy as much land as you can, expand as much as you can, and in the future, expand vertically.
And
that's what's happening now. That's what's happening.
This year marks the 50th anniversary of St. George's Church, where Father Tadros worships. I want to ask you how you feel about the identity issues. So the early pioneers wanted to have their Coptic Orthodox Church to retain their identity, their worship, their sacraments, their way of life. Do you think that still rings true today for the second, third and fourth generation?
Definitely. Even the idea of having a school was the same thing, was to keep the identity.
So that's the focus of the Coptic
We
Orthodox.
don't want to be lost. We want to be dissolved in this community here. Remember, we are learning from the mistakes and the shortcomings of the other churches. Look at what happened to the Greek. Look at what happened even to the Lebanese. Many of the churches, yes, they expanded, but not as much as we did. And many of them now are almost became like a copy of the other churches around them. And many of their kids don't share the old values. Even the old rituals of the church is disappearing. It's good to speak in English, but don't lose the rituals. Don't lose the old roots. We can always translate things to English, but we'll never, ever can make up for losing our Coptic culture and Coptic identity and roots and history. And that's what we should work hard for.
And is that the focus of service for the next 50 years?
Definitely, definitely. Not only that, also we need to expand to this land, to the other people, to the other communities. One of the ideas which we used to discuss many times in our priest meetings, that we need the communities where our churches are to come, become part of it. Open the churches. Open the church as a community. Don't become like an island in a foreign sea where people don't know you. Let people come. And that's where the idea came, say, of having a church in the city, of having a church where you can call the foreigners to come and attend services. And it starts to work. Even in St. Mary here, I see some of the locals starting even to come to have a look, even to attend our celebrations and our faith. But they became so interested.
And in 50 years, the word Coptic was not a very used term. In the history books, that period was called Greco-Roman. Now Coptic is well and truly in the history books. And it has expanded out of Egypt into the whole world, not least of which in Australia. And
that's true. Not far long ago. It is even if you look at the books written or edited by Philip Chef, the Christian church, you will find, for he wrote his books around the end of 19th century, the mention of the Coptic church is so little, only historical. And even you will find some of the places where he say it looks like a historical church, which is declining. That was the idea of many historians until almost when the French came to Egypt in the end of the 18th century or the start of 19th century, and they saw no Copts available anymore. Now it's resurrected. They see them everywhere, expanding. I think it's the time of our beloved Pope Tadros, the time when this pioneering idea of expanding, going outside. And I always remember that the first ever Pope to think of having bishops without a diocese was his idea. When he had 3 bishops, mainly for services. That's Amba Shinoda for education, Amba Samuel for social services, Amba Gregorius for scientific research. And it was a pioneering idea. And you can't imagine how this expanded. Look at what we have now. When I was ordained a priest, it looks like something strange. Somebody from Australia is ordained a priest, but I was not really ordained from Australia. 1979 was I ordained. I was only 5 years here in this land.
But
so
you were not imported.
I was not imported, but again also looks like
not that there's anything wrong with being imported, but a priest ordained in another country to come and serve in a new environment.
Right.
But you had been the
but
first.
now, look at what's happening now. How many priests of our own children?
Yes.
Of our own children.
Yes.
Even we have from those who graduated from our own school, like Father
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Father Michael
absolutely.
was our student in
Yes.
St. Mary's College.
Would he be the first graduate from the school to be ordained?
But we have teachers as well.
Yeah.
Some of the
Father-
teachers, like Abuna Athanasius,
Yes.
like Abuna Habib Gerges, they
Yes.
were teachers in St. Mary's College.
Yes.
Abuna Stephen, he was a
Yes.
teacher in St. Mary's Coptic
Yes.
College.
But Father Michael was the first student who graduated from the school.
Exactly. And
Father
this is-
Tadros, thank you very much for your time. We could sit here and talk about your take and reflections of this wonderful era, especially the last 50 years. What can you leave us with as a reflection to
Well, as a
conclude this
reflection,
wonderful chat?
I feel that God has blessed us, especially with the type of abunas, the priests who are serving here in the church. I feel so humbled by the love and dedication and the work of other priests. I cannot forget somebody like Abuna Victor. Abuna Victor was pioneer in his work. Of course, Abuna bin al-Amatallah, which I didn't deal much with him, but I remember him very well, and I met him a few times. But those pioneered priests have given us this encouragement. And then later on, our own youth, our own children come and serve. It is a sign of a live church, a church which is alive. Even when you look somebody like Ines was one of our Sunday school kids.
Shall we kill them?
Almost. I remember when I saw Ines, she was only 17 years old, or even younger. How was old? I wouldn't ask her this question.
You're not far from the truth.
Yeah. And I remember her, she was so young.
Yeah.
Now, look at Ines and her services. Not only Ines, there's many like her. Many like her who are serving, like both of you and like us others, who are serving and doing very good work. We now, perhaps, I don't consider myself as the older group, but I look for, I step a little bit backward and I look with admiration. And I look also with so much inner pride that God giving us these blessings. And I say, if this is the time I'm going to live this life, at least I have a lot of satisfaction. And I'm praying that this is grow more, become more active. And this church become really a beacon of light for all Australia, for all the world around us. The Coptic Church has a great job to do. God has sent us outside Egypt for a great service. And that's what I keep repeating in my sermon all the time, telling the people, don't ever think that you came here in Australia just to have a better life. That's what like every one of you saying. We had a hard life in Egypt and we're coming here. I said to them, what happens if Egypt has a better life than here? Would you migrate back?
Which is it at the
Would you
moment.
go back? Would your kids migrate back? I think you came here for a purpose. The purpose is to start to bring your roots here and implement it here and let it grow a great tree where all the birds of heaven can come and have the shade and the benefit of this tree. You have a great job. God has taken you out of Egypt, which was a difficult task for any Egyptian to do, but to establish and to go on and encourage this great work here in this country. May the Lord really bless this church. And I'm sure, I hope our grandchildren and grandchildren can enjoy this great service and this great spirituality of the church, of this church of the martyrs, of the ancient Egyptians, of those great people who wrote history and keep writing history for many generations to come.
Abuna, I want to thank you for your time, because you have been one of the pillars of the church who have written the history or a great part of the history of the last 50 years. not least of which has been your tireless work in the school, never to be underestimated. The generations that have come out of the school and have been leaders in their academic or professional life, not least of which is service in the church. We owe you a great debt. Not least of which, of course, is that you have the history all here and you readily story tell it to us, and we never forget the foundation of the church, because that's what will propel us forward. Thank you very much for your tireless service, 24 hours every day for the last few decades. May you have many more to come. We really greatly value the time you've given us today.
Thank you very much for all this wonderful time.
Thank you.